Let's go Browns! Imagine a crowd going crazy in Cleveland, social media going wild, and fans flooding the comments with the same question. Is it real? Terry McLaurin with the Browns? Sounds crazy? Maybe, but this rumor is gaining momentum, and when we spoke with Andrew Berry, nothing can be ruled out. McLaurin, Scary Terry, is unhappy in Washington, demanding a new contract and making it clear that he won't return to the field under his current conditions. A wide receiver with over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns last season, a true idol for those who follow the Buckeyes, could be about to become the biggest target of one of the franchise's hungriest for a player of his caliber. And, let's face it, there's no better way to warm the fans' anger after weeks of more news than bringing one of Ohio's most beloved sons back home. Now, think about the impact of this: a renewed offense, a quarterback's increased confidence, players like Elijah Moore and David Njoku benefiting from defenses desperate to contain McLaurin. This would completely change the Browns' dynamic, but it's also a huge risk. We're talking about a player turning 30 who will demand a multi-million-dollar contract. And it's precisely this combination of dream and risk that makes this story so compelling. Would Barry have the courage to risk everything to give this gift to the fans? And you, fan, are you ready to see Scary Terry in the maroon and orange helmet? We have important updates, and I'll tell you everything you're betting on. But before we continue, click the like button if you've been a Cleveland Browns fan for over 20 years. It's great for fans of all ages. There are people here who played in the first game. If possible, comment like this: "Let's go, Browns. Let's go to the Super Bowl." McLaurin is in the final year of the 3-year contract he signed in 2022. He's not only made it clear he wants a new deal, but he's also publicly lobbying to get it. He's already racked up over $100,000 in fines for missing mandatory minicamps, and there's been no negotiation or even communication between him and the Commanders' board. To make matters worse, or better for those hoping to see him join another franchise, McLaurin has stated he won't return to the field under his current circumstances. And keep in mind that he doesn't want to be traded. He said, "It takes two to dance," indicating that everything depends on how Washington handles the situation. And here begins the part that tugs at the heartstrings of any Browns fan. Andrew Berry has already proven himself to be an aggressive GM who loves to surprise. No one bet on the Browns getting involved with Brandon Ayuk last offseason, and yet we almost saw Amari Cooper go to San Francisco in a blockbuster trade. So why not imagine Berry calling Washington? He's already shown he sees the team as competitive, even after a season with only 3 wins. While some believe investing in a 30-year-old receiver on a team still lacking a clear offensive direction would be madness, Berry seems to live in another universe, one where the Browns can still dream of the playoffs. And think with me, Scary Terry would be perfect for that. Last year, with Jaden Daniels as a rookie, McLaurin had over 1,000 yards, around 90 receptions, and 13 touchdowns. All this without missing virtually a game since 2020. He's durable, explosive, and, for the Ohio State fans, one of their own. It's almost impossible for a Browns fan not to get excited about seeing a Buckeye shine in Cleveland. Now, the big question: does it make sense for Washington to trade him? Maybe not, but, as they say in the NFL, prepare for the unexpected. Commanders GM Adam Peters might look at McLaurin, who's about to turn 30, and decide he's not worth paying a long, expensive contract. He might look at Amari Cooper and decide it's better to trade before his production drops. What if the Browns offer, say, a second-round pick? For a team that already brought in Deebo Samuel and has other young wide receivers, that could be a tempting option. And if Berry is truly feeling the pressure from the fans, what better way to calm things down than to bring in a former Buckeye? As was said in the conversation that sparked these rumors, signing an Ohio State player practically forgives any previous mistakes in the eyes of many fans. Just imagine, after all the disappointment with Judkins, the Browns announcing Scary Terry in the locker room. Just thinking about it makes you feel the roar of the Cleveland crowd erupt. So let's continue, because the best part of this story is yet to come. Let's delve deeper into what this potential trade could mean for the Browns and why it's so divisive among those who closely follow the NFL. First, we need to understand the importance Terry McLaurin would have in this offense. We're talking about a wide receiver who, despite playing with inconsistent quarterbacks for much of his career, has always managed to produce at a high level. He's not just fast, he's a technical player with precise route running and steady hands. And for those who follow the Browns' history, you know that finding consistency at wide receiver has never been one of the franchise's strengths. Amari Cooper, who arrived and brought some stability, had his worst season last year, something that raised many questions about what to expect from him going forward. Now imagine a scenario where McLaurin arrives to be that reliable anchor, the player who turns tricky third downs into conversions, who can line up both wide and in the slot. and who has an immediate connection with the fans simply because he was a Buckeye. And here's a detail that stirs the imagination. Andrew Berry, according to behind-the-scenes discussion, would indeed be willing to bet bigger than many GMs right now, precisely because he refuses to accept that the Browns are in a complete rebuild. He sees this roster as competitive, and a move of this magnitude would be the best proof of that. But there's another side to this story. Is it too risky? Many analysts would say so. The Browns finished last season with just 3 wins, and the quarterback situation is still unclear. Is it really worth paying a premium for a 30-year-old wide receiver when the team doesn't even know if it has a reliable franchise QB to nurture him? And here comes an interesting debate. If Berry makes this trade, he would be betting not only on McLaurin's talent, but on a future where the offense returns to full strength, something that hasn't happened in a long time in Cleveland. And McLaurin's health history can't be ignored. He's practically iron, rarely missing games, and that, for a player approaching 30, is a powerful argument for those advocating for the trade. Scary Terry shows no signs of a drop in production, and if he maintains this consistency for another 2 or 3 years, it could be exactly what the Browns' offense needs to make an immediate competitive leap. But what about the Commanders? Let's look at the other side. Adam Peters, the GM, may be thinking exactly as Berry did with Cooper. Why compromise the future with a long-term, multi-million-dollar contract for a player who, statistically, could be as McLaurin nearing a decline, even if the current numbers don't show it? The arrival of Deebo Samuel, plus the confidence in young receivers, could make Peters' decision to trade McLaurin and accumulate draft capital easier. And a Browns second-rounder could become a very valuable asset, considering the team is still rebuilding. And you know what else makes this story fascinating? The emotional aspect, the Buckeye factor. For anyone who grew up a fan of Ohio State, seeing McLaurin in a Browns uniform would be a dream. The fans, angered by the Quinshon Judkins fiasco, would forgive Berry in an instant. It's the kind of move that makes noise, excites the city, and sends a clear message: we're trying to win now. And here comes the big question. Would Andrew Berry be willing to pay the right price? Because Washington, if it decides to open negotiations, won't let him off the hook. They might demand not just a second-round pick, but perhaps a trade or even a package of future draft picks. Would Berry, under pressure from the current situation, have the courage to make such an all-in move? And what's more, do you, the fans, want him to do this? Is it worth sacrificing part of the team's future for a player who, despite all his talent, is already entering a phase where any drop in performance is widely observed? And let's go further, because this discussion still has much more to discuss. A crucial point that few are discussing is the impact Terry McLaurin would have on the Browns' locker room. We're talking about a player respected throughout the league, known for his work ethic and professionalism. He's never been a problem off the field, never generated negative controversies, and is considered a quiet leader, someone who inspires by example. On a team facing questions about commitment and focus, especially after the Quinshon Judkins situation, McLaurin could be one of those names that immediately changes the internal culture. Another aspect we can't ignore is the psychological factor. Imagine the impact the arrival of a player of this caliber would have on other players on the roster, especially the quarterback, whoever starts next season. Giving him a reliable and experienced target like McLaurin not only improves the offense technically, but also boosts the confidence of the entire offensive system. Players like Elijah Moore and David Njoku could benefit enormously from the attention Scary Terry would attract from opposing defenses. And speaking of numbers, the contract McLaurin is seeking may seem hefty at first glance, but compared to other top receivers in the league, it could actually be a smart investment. Elite wide receivers are expensive, and acquiring a player who delivers consistent production without a history of serious injuries for a price near the top of the market could be considered a worthwhile deal, especially if the Browns believe they're 1 or 2 names